And welcome, everyone, to the Best Phones Plans Podcast, episode 42. Today, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Stetson Doggett on, and myself, Dennis. We're going to be talking about some really exciting stuff today. MobileX just released some very exciting news, if you guys remember when we had them on what feels like forever ago. We're also going to be talking about some crazy news in regards to this most recent Spectrum auction. The demand has been off the charts. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about Red Pocket doing some very aggressive promotions. And of course, in true Dennis fashion, I'll be sprinkling in a little bit of spicy hot takes throughout the mix. So make sure you stay to catch all those.
I love it, Dennis. I love it. Yeah, I think we got a great show coming on. And Dennis, thank you for that intro. I feel like I need to do a better intro for you next time. You queued me up as this really epic person, so I'm glad to be here on our show together. And of course, Dennis is here. Yeah, I think we should dive into it, Dennis. This is a really exciting episode, probably for number one main reason, MobileX, right? And I think audience, you might be wondering, what is MobileX? Well, MobileX it's sort of this new brand or company started by Peter Adderton. Peter was the founder and CEO of Boost Mobile, started in Australia and was brought to the United States. And that was a really, really successful MVNO. It was sold to Sprint. Peter then tried to buy it back when the Sprint T-Mobile merger was happening. That was axed. And I think to sort of get back at the industry and do something he wanted to, Peter decided to start MobileX. So Dennis, what was the bomb that was dropped today from MobileX? This was coming from MobileX and reported on from tons of different outlets. What are we looking at right now?
Well, MobileX has announced that they're going to have a partnership with the Red Devil, Verizon Wireless.
Whew. Did you see this coming? When we had Peter on the show last time, we were trying to hypothesize, what network is MobileX going to use? Did you think Verizon? We had a 33% chance, right?
Well, I knew for a fact it wasn't going to be T-Mobile based off of how he went off on the news and what he had to say about T-Mobile.
Peter, he's got some great personality, great Twitter presence, and he's a strong advocate for consumers. And I think he gave T-Mobile a lot of flack for somewhat screwing over Boost Mobile subscribers in terms of shutting down the 3G network. That's what a lot of Boost Mobile customers are on. They're going to need new phones. They were not working with Dish at all to kind of help migrate those customers. So Peter really being kind of a firecracker there and advocating for consumers, which I appreciate. And that kind of crossed off T-Mobile, right? So that left AT&T and Verizon.
Or Dish.
But Dish doesn't really exist yet, so.
But yeah, no. As far as Verizon goes, back then I wouldn't have guessed it, because if you remember when he was on, he was really talking about how it's going to be this pay-per-use kind of model, right? And with that kind of lineup, Verizon doesn't come first to mind as far as affordability goes when it comes to data. Yeah. So I never would have guessed that it would have been Verizon Access for that reason, as well as the fact that as far as the carriers goes, Verizon doesn't necessarily play the nicest when it comes to bringing over your own phone kind of deal. So my money was going to end up being on AT&T just because they were a GSM-based network. They have a very great mix of coverage to performance, and most importantly, they have been doing some of the most aggressive MVNO deals out of all the carriers as of recently, anyway.
Sure, yeah. AT&T prepaid definitely very strong.
Well, not even just prepaid. I'm talking about the Dish contract that was awarded, the fact that AT&T was the first to enable what Carlos is doing right now. Just look at their MVNO subsidiaries and look at what they're doing. I can't get too into the details about what pricing looks like, but AT&T's been very aggressive with these deals.
Sure. So yeah, but it's here and it's Verizon, and I think the official announcement says that they're using Verizon's. Well, first we should do a covery and synopsis of this announcement. So MobileX Global is the company that Peter founded, and the United States subsidiary is just MobileX. And the reason it's important that MobileX Global is the idea here is this is one network, or not one network, but one service, one connection you have for global coverage. And Peter talked about that when we had him on as a guest on the show. Dennis, as you mentioned, like ages ago. But this is really cool. So they've built this cloud-based AI platform. They're calling this XO.1 or XO. Yeah, I think that's how you would say it. And this will basically enable the personalized and tailored plans that is going to be the key feature of MobileX, right? Peter's all like, forget unlimited plans. The truth is no one needs unlimited. I think Roger Etner was saying like the average customer uses 12 gigs of data per month and they're paying for unlimited. Doesn't make any sense. So what MobileX has done is these engineers have built an AI tool to help, I think, maybe monitor or track usage to, I want to say, customize the plans for the individual. And the quote from the press release is MobileX Global will deliver an incredibly intuitive, easy to use, and real-time proprietary platform that truly puts the power in the hands of the consumer. Now they can choose what they want, when they want, and only pay for what they need. The innovations in our cloud-based platform enable unprecedented levels of customization and flexibility. So that's kind of the gist here. And Dennis, one thing I wanted to mention is while it may seem surprising at first that, you know, they decided to partner with Verizon, Verizon actually announced something kind of interesting a while ago and kind of went under the radar. So I wanted to pull that up for you now. It's from the Verizon News Center and it's the network as a service. Have you heard about this?
I remember. I mean, I vaguely remember it because it was part of the whole. It was part of the whole 5G talk, right? When Verizon was talking about how they're going to update their network core, it was something that was more covered more for like engineer geeky people. They were talking about how they're going to upgrade their core network for 5G to enable this, as well as you know, taking note from how like AWS works with like containers within the network splicing, and all that good nerdy stuff. And I remember hearing a little bit about this, but yeah, I mean, as far as things goes, like this bit of information that you're about to talk about is something that the everyday consumer doesn't care about. It's definitely more targeted towards enterprise customers.
Right, so it's enterprise customers. And I think that's almost like what MobileX is. So the idea here is network as a service. And I think this chart from Verizon is kind of the breakdown you want to look at. Like the traditional model is you've got a rigid structure with fixed bandwidths. You have to manually configure hardware, and it takes longer to provision, requires high capital expenditure, and is not easily automated. With the network as a service, I think this is kind of leveraging 5G and network slicing, where suddenly you have a platform that's intelligent and flexible. It's virtualized and can be changed quickly. And this is key, usually delivered on a pay-as-you-need basis, right? This is exactly what MobileX is looking for. They want to deliver customers the data they need, the minutes they need, and the text they need on a pay-per-use basis, so you're not overpaying for your service. So I think this is really key and programmable and automated. And I think this is really going to be kind of the secret sauce, at least for the United States-based version of MobileX, where I want to say what MobileX has built, their XO.1 platform, their AI system, will be running on Verizon's or integrating with Verizon's network as a service to really help provide customers with the plans they need on a dynamic and more flexible basis. Now, Dennis, my big question for you, what do you think these plans will be?
Well, from this announcement in comparison to when we had them on, it's changed a little bit. Like, I don't know how good your memory is, Stetson, but if you remember when we had Peter on, when we had him on and we were talking, it sounded more like a dream with no real plan in mind, if you remember, right? Like,
yeah.
Now it has more of a target demographic. In fact, the part that we haven't really been talking about, which I find the most interesting about the announcement, is the actual global aspect of it. I really don't care about the pay-per-use in the U.S. I think it's interesting about what internationally is going to look like, because it's starting to sound a lot like Airlu to a certain extent when I'm hearing it.
So I'll just pull in the quote, and then you can kind of go off of this. The quote from the announcement is, "We plan to serve a new generation of borderless consumers who will only ever need one phone number, one service, where your network goes wherever you go, providing global connectivity without data roaming charges. We are committed to being at the forefront of this global service to consumers."
Yeah, which that sounds a lot like Airlu, or what Airlu is trying to accomplish.
Right, because they're like an aggregated marketplace. Well, it's almost like their special eSIM that will automatically roam. I think it's between like 80 different countries at this point or something along those lines.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Yeah, like this idea that like we're going to be the marketplace that gets you connected in all these different countries. MobileX is kind of doing the same thing, but rebranding everything under MobileX when you go, so the consumer doesn't know, but it's still the end same result, right? It's not like MobileX is going to be building out networks in these different countries. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that what they're building is kind of the cloud-based system and the algorithm that can then integrate with all these other networks and systems to provide that consistent experience wherever you are globally, and even if you are on a different network.
Which is what Airlu's game is, right? Like they're trying to be that middleman for these MNOs to enable that to happen, right? Now, as far as the pay-per-use thing goes, I know when he watches this, I'm going to get so much flack, but I truly don't see this being something that lasts. Like this type of market strategy, I don't see it making too much logical sense unless the pricing is like literally like dirt cheap, like only like a penny or two more than what he's actually paying for the data type of deal. Because I'm just going to use an example real quick, okay, Stetson?
Absolutely, go for it.
Let's just say he decides that he's going to charge $7 a gigabyte.
Okay.
I feel like that's a pretty fair low number, right?
Well, I would say for like 1 gig, that sounds reasonable. But the moment you start getting like 2 and 3 gigs, like 3 gigs is $21. You can get 5 gigs from US Mobile for $15.
Well, that's where I'm going with this. Like pay per use, he's going to be charging like probably per megabyte, honestly. But let's just say per gigabyte it's $7, right? Because it's like your utility, it's like your water bill, right? You're paying for that, right? You're not paying in advance, you're paying on your usage. So 7 gigs per gigabyte. Let's just say that's the number. It's pretty reasonably low for all things considered. You know, like you were about to mention, if you were just to go with a more traditional concept of plan, like something from US Mobile for $15, where you get unlimited talk, text, and five gigs of data, right?
Yep, 5 gigs, yeah, it's insane.
It just makes a lot more sense. Like even if you're the most lowest use case data user, like it's so darn cheap already. Like how do you beat that, right? Like where does the
it's
savings?
Kind of like if you run mobile, like your $7 per gig example. You could use basically up to 2 gigs on MobileX, and it would make sense. It would be cheaper than US Mobile. But US Mobile is kind of at that price point, and Mint Mobile and other MVNOs, where it's like, well, why don't you just go with the data bucket? Yeah, you're not going to use all that data, but you have a lot of headroom, you have the flexibility you need, and you don't need to worry about like going over a certain allotment and having your bill suddenly increase, where it goes from $14 to $21, and you actually would have saved money going with the data bucket plan anyway.
Right. Like that's the first main thing that I have to say. And then secondarily, I think it's pretty fair to say that the trend for consumers when it comes to data usage is not one in which it goes down.
This is true. Yeah.
Like people are using more data today than they ever did before in the past, and they're going to be using even more data next year than they ever did this year, because the simple fact of the matter is that even the things that we consider the most simplest of things when it comes to basic web browsing consume far more data than they did in the past. I'm going to use a really quick example. Let's just say you're browsing Facebook, Stetson. Well, Facebook today is a lot different from Facebook back in like 2006. You got video content that's auto-playing automatically at higher resolutions than they existed before, so that's using data. You got higher resolution pictures coming from those fancy new iPhones that are being posted. Obviously, you got your basic text, but the Facebook itself is a much more heavier thing with all the ads that are popping in and everything else that goes along with it. You know, I think it's pretty reasonable to say, like, doing an hour of social media browsing on Facebook might use at least 200 megabytes. I think that's a...
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable estimate.
Yeah, 200 to more, depending on how many videos you're watching, but I think 200 megs is pretty realistic, which doesn't sound like a lot, but, you know, a couple hours a day of doing that, you're going to shoot
really
through
adds up. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, YouTube, right? That's that's what we're on right now. People are listening to us on YouTube. You figure if they're watching 1080p, they're probably using about maybe 2 gigabytes an hour.
That sounds about right. Plus, I mean, as you mentioned with Facebook videos that autoplay, YouTube now has sort of the thumbnails that autoplay as GIFs for like clips of the video, and that's going to take up extra data as well.
Yeah, and then let's think about too all the background processing that happens for apps. You know, Google Maps checking your location data, Facebook checking your location data, your email client refreshing its email list.
Yeah.
Phones have gotten a lot smarter and a lot more data hungry. Apps that auto update if that's what you have turned on. Like, things are going to use more data, especially if we're talking about being connected to things like high capacity 5G, right? Like, run one speed test, right? Stetson on a millimeter wave. You chew through like 3 gigs, right?
100%.
So, I guess
You think it's going to be too expensive? That's the bottom line right now, is what I'm hearing.
Bottom line, I just don't see how this becomes a good value for consumers. Like, unless you were like legit, like 70 years old on a flip phone, I don't see where this makes sense. Like, he's targeting it towards younger people like us, right?
Sure.
But young people don't want to think about gigs. They like consistency and bill and taxes and fees included. And if you're that price conscientious consumer, honestly, the most attractive offer is visible at $25. Truly unlimited, right? $25?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, And then if you really don't need unlimited, like that's really who you are, then US Mobile or Mint Mobile or Red Pocket even are going to be great options. Like, they're really, really affordable. Like, I just feel like you get to a point where like the cost of something becomes so low that it's commoditized, and that like these very small fractional differences in pricing aren't going to matter to the consumer when we're talking about overall experience.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying the main focus that I find interesting is the international aspect of it, not so much.
It is kind of like the experience then. Like, you're focusing on that seamless international experience, somewhat like what Google Fi has, right? Where you can just travel abroad, your bill stays the same, you don't have to worry about it.
Right. That's the opportunity where I see them having a possibility as far as like a niche in the market goes, because as the years go on, unlimited is going to continue to come down in cost. Like, even if it doesn't happen on the postpaid side, prepaid is going to make it happen. I mean, look at what Carlos was able to do when he got access to the T-Mobile access. It's not unlimited, but 100 gigabytes, I think it was $45, tax and fees included, priority data access. Like, that's pretty darn good,
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't know, I would almost put Los Mobile in a different category. I think it's a different breed, it's a different animal serving.
Well, the reason I mentioned it was because it has priority data, unlike other MVNO options.
I guess it's true. Well, I guess that kind of comes down to what I'm saying, where I wouldn't classify Los Mobile as an MVNO right now. I would classify it more as like a special agreement situation, because they're offering something totally unique to the market that other MVNOs haven't been able to offer. I would look at more like what Red Pocket's doing with like their $50 50 gig plan as like a broader comparison of like what's more readily available from different MVNOs.
My main point that I was getting at more so than anything was that if you're the consumer that cares about value, you have visible in US Mobile. If you're a consumer that cares about priority data and want like a good amount of it, you have like things like Los Mobile is the demographic, and all of it being within spitting distance as far as pricing.
I have a theory about MobileX and their pricing structure. You want to hear this?
Yes.
I was pondering this a lot, right? Because I came to the same conclusion you did. If you do like an historic pay per gig model, pay per use model, I don't think it's going to work. We saw this with Ting, right? They launched with pay per use plans. They were reasonably affordable when they launched. A lot of people loved them. As time went on, to Dennis, your point, we saw more and more data bucket plans come out that were a way better value. $15 on Ting might get you a couple hundred minutes, a couple hundred texts, and a gig of data, whereas $15 on Mint Mobile, boom, you're looking at unlimited talk and text with 4 gigs of data per month. Like, that's a way better value. So my hypothesis with MobileX is that they might actually charge per gigabyte or per megabyte, and they might actually vary the cost based on what kind of data you're consuming. So I'm hypothesizing, if you're a video streaming consumer, you love watching the Best Phone Plans podcast, you love watching Marquez Brownlee, Mr. Mobile, all these other channels, then maybe your rate for data would actually be higher because you're adding additional strain on the network and you consistently need that 5 megabit per second, 8 megabit per second, or 25 megabit per second connection ranging from 720p to 4K video content. And then I think if you're someone who's casually browsing the web, you're on your Facebook profile, you're on Twitter, maybe the data rates are less, where you're paying less per megabyte because you're not having a huge strain on the network.
I mean,
That's my current theory. What like, is this possible? Someone on Twitter said like this is against net neutrality, and I was like, well, maybe that's a valid point.
well, net
But I'm
neutrality is
thinking,
dead at the moment, but
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean it's possible, but like,
and
how
maybe
do
the
you?
price point is $1 per gigabyte.
Okay, so let's break it into parts. So as far as your hypothesis, I think it's creative. Yes, it's possible,
Okay.
but how do you explain that to consumer? Like, I'm just gonna use the example, Stetson. Okay,
Yeah.
me and you live in the house. Okay, we're living in a house together. We both have MobileX. All right. I'm watching video on my phone, and my net total gigabyte usage for the month was 4 gigabytes. You also used 4 gigabytes, but for whatever reason, you just didn't watch any videos. My bill is $50, and your bill is $10. What kind of explanation are you going to give to the everyday consumer of how that BS works out? And
Yeah.
and do you really think people want to spend the mental energy to do the arithmetic to figure out what their bill is going to be at the end of the month?
Yeah,
in that
like
scenario?
what is watching this 10-minute video gonna do to my MobileX bill?
Like that so as far as experience goes, that's horrible. And then and then the other aspect of it is, if we're talking about the network strain side of things, well then there's much more simpler ways to do things that most people aren't going to notice, like implementing the 480p video streaming cap to reduce data usage, maybe throttling music streams to a specific data rate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, if you're concerned about network strain, that are both more efficient and your everyday average consumer isn't probably going to notice, that are much more effective at reducing data usage overall, right?
Fair points.
And then as far as what they could possibly charge for data, I mean, if they're getting like enterprise rates, right? Like MobileX is probably, best case scenario, Verizon's probably charging them like $2 per gigabyte. Best case scenario, right?
Sure, because I think that's what we see with US Mobile, and their pooled plans is $2 per gig.
Yeah, best case scenario, that's what they're being charged. Best case scenario, okay?
Sure.
Like for a company that's what their size is going to be at the moment, right? Which means in order for them to make a meaningful profit, right, to actually
They've got
cover
to price
all the
it at like $4 per gig or $5 per gig.
probably like $5 per gig, which would be in line with what big cable operators like Xfinity pay Verizon per
Oh
gigabyte.
yeah, that's a good call. They're $15 for 1 gig, and I think it's like $30 for 3 gigs. But that's adding in like an extra cushion, extra margins and stuff.
Well, I'm saying like Xfinity pays Verizon like $5 per like gigabyte
Per gig of usage, yeah.
is like roughly what that costs them, but that doesn't start accounting for the other ancillary recovery fees and stuff like that also get put on to you
Yeah.
for having like a phone, which means the profit margin for like a Comcast on like 1 gig of data might only be like $5 on that 15.
Right.
Like,
That's interesting.
like it gets eaten up pretty quickly. And I guess my main point is that there's a ton of things that go into having this. Like, they're gonna have to pay for development of their software tools. They're gonna have to pay for engineers. They're gonna have to pay for customer service.
They're burning money too right now. Like I think
Right.
Peter's founding this. I don't know where they had to get some sort of seed investment basically, and they're burning through it. So they're gonna need to be profitable or
Basically,
burn money. Yeah. Huh.
Basically, what I'm saying is that if you want the cost to be as low as you're talking about, Stetson, you're going to need some very large economies of scale. Because if a Comcast can't even convince Verizon to charge them the type of pricing you're talking about,
Yeah.
then that means Peter is going to have to either be really bigger than Comcast, it's like mobile subscriber base, or know somebody to like work out a special agreement, right? Like,
Yeah. Interesting.
because, and then also don't forget too, even if he was getting a healthy profit, investors in the company are gonna want to see financial growth, right? Like profit margins of 25% aren't sexy to investors, right? They want to see 50% profit margins, especially in this industry, right? If not better.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
I don't know. Like, my thought process is that I am ignorant to know what Peter is thinking. He's a maverick. He's a revolutionary. He's done things that, younger versions of me probably wouldn't have thought about, because hindsight's always 20/20. But I feel like he's got an uphill, in my eyes, he's got an uphill battle if he's trying to target my demographic, because like I'm the nerdy one that understands the details and could keep track of my data, but like I don't see it making logical sense from a cost standpoint. And then as far as the everyday consumer, it's going to require some education. And I just don't think consumers want this like utility experience, right? Like Stetson, do you enjoy thinking about like your per kilowatt hour for your electric bill?
We don't even think about it. We just use electricity and then go, oh, wow, that was a lot more expensive than we thought. And we pay our electric bill.
That's what mobile care is, right? It's like the electric utility bill, per megabyte, per gigabyte of your cell phone service, right? Like,
yeah, so interesting. I love your thoughts on the, I was like, wow, maybe it's based on your usage type, your data type. But as some people on Twitter have mentioned, and as you pointed out, like, it just doesn't make sense, I think, to try and educate consumers on that. But
plus too, there's something else that we're not talking about. There has to be some base cost just from the texting and calling component of things. Like
like a basic. I think US Mobile is like $9 per line for their pooled plans.
Well, let's be curious and let's just say maybe they they're eating something on it. Maybe they only charge $5 to have the line going. They were just paying the tax and fees. Okay. Well, if we're starting at $5, and then let's go back to my $7 for a gigabyte because I feel like that's more realistic. So 5 plus 7 is 12, and let's add on taxes and fees because he's probably not going to be including taxes and fees, right?
Yeah.
Well, now we're at $15, right? We're right back into that. Here we are, where you're giving 1 gig for 15 area, and US Mobile's doing 5 gigabytes, right? Like it very quickly adds up. So I don't know. Like I think they're really cool. I think that more so than anything, MobileX is a tech company. It just happens that just so happens to be selling cell phone service in the same way that Airlu was a tech company that was so happening to like aggregate cell phone carriers.
I view it a little differently. I think, well, first of all, I'm more curious than ever what Peter is going to do from the cost standpoint in these plans. Like we've both kind of in our minds thought, hey, I don't think this pay-per-use model works in the current landscape, but maybe Peter's going to do something different. Maybe he's going to do something we haven't even thought of yet. And that's what I'm most curious about for sure.
Well,
and then I think
one thing I was going to say that Peter could do that would help him out tremendously is if he were to actually get his hands on some spectrum to deploy for himself in high traffic areas. So that way he's not actually paying Verizon and he can offload that.
You're thinking more like the Xfinity Mobile kind of play here.
Well, not Wi-Fi hotspots. I'm talking
they own, I think, part of CBRS, which
but they haven't been
used.
But they haven't been deploying.
But that's similar kind of idea. Like they own the spectrum and they can deploy it and have customers use that instead of paying Verizon.
Right, but Xfinity's approach has more so been the Wi-Fi hotspots. Like that's their approach. I'm saying that MobileX actually becomes like an MNO in high traffic areas. Maybe they buy or lease some spectrum off of Dish that they're just sitting on and not using, like in like the most high traffic areas to try to offload some of that cost, right?
Sure. Well, what if they get an agreement with Xfinity Mobile, right? And what if they can use the hotspots? Like, what if this cloud platform allows them to switch between your airport Wi-Fi, your mobile hotspots, your Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots, in such a way where that they're paying Verizon $7 per gig, but maybe the net average cost comes out to be a lot less because they're able to aggregate all these other internet connection points.
So sure, they could do something like that. I mean, especially in cities, free Wi-Fi is available to many, but there's 3 points that I want to bring up here. One, typically free Wi-Fi options, well, not typically, free public Wi-Fi options, period, are not secure. 2, free anything is not a consistent experience. You might go to Starbucks where they have a nice 100 megabit per second connection, and the mom and pop shop only gets like 10 by 10, like your cabin, right? So 2, inconsistent experience. And 3, as far as actually partnering up with a company that has Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots with like an Xfinity, like a Charter or whomever, why would they do that? What do they get out of it? Wouldn't they rather just convince the people to come on their network and use their thing and just have that retention play? Like he would have to pay them something for that access. Like Comcast.
Oh, 100%. I'm just imagining like it'd be cheaper on a per gig basis.
It would, but like Comcast isn't just going to be like, oh yeah, I'll offload your traffic on our network for free. Like, why would they do that?
That wasn't. Yeah, it was more like it'll be cheaper per gig than paying Verizon. Like it'll be $3 per gig instead of $7.
Sure, but I just look. I know he's probably gonna rip me a new one on Twitter. I have a feeling. He doesn't hold punches, but I think you know what I think needs to happen, Peter. If you're listening to this and you're open to it, I think we need to have you on for a refresher. Maybe you can educate my poor ignorant soul so I can help see the vision.
Yeah, when we're ready to get like the pricing structure. I mean, I feel like I came up with some interesting ideas. That is, I feel like you shut them down or like gave very logical explanations to why they wouldn't work. So the question is like, what are they gonna do? Do you have any theories, Dennis?
I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. My mind can't logically grasp it. Like, the only way MobileX wins, right, is if they target a niche and they're doing something better. Like, yeah. It was a while ago I was talking about like what it takes to be a good cell phone provider, right? It's not hard, right? Good customer service, good product, reasonable value, right? You do these three things, you're going to be successful across pretty much any industry, and that applies for cell phone service as well. Well, these example models of pricing do not lend itself to a good customer experience to me, right? Like that is a lot of mental energy that I don't want to waste my time thinking about. I don't want to do that. As far as a good product goes, they have Verizon network. It's great access. That's definitely fantastic. But there are better holistic products that already are proven and exist in the market that help
that's
your
niches. Visible. That's your US Mobile.
Right, that help fit the specific niches. And then the value proposition is the area which I find to be the absolute weakest because, like I said, pricing for data is not expensive anymore, especially if we start talking about like family discounts or anything like that too. Like we didn't even talk about family discounts, but like anyway, you asked me what do I think they could do?
Yeah. Do you have any? I have one more theory. Also, if you haven't thought of one yet.
Well, if I had to take a guess, this is what I think they could do, and this would make more sense.
And yeah, I guess keep in mind, like their promotion and marketing materials say customized plans for each individual customer.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do they do that?
This is what I think ends up happening to a certain extent. I feel like they end up taking a little bit of a cue from US Mobile, where they let you actually pick your amount of minutes, your texts, and your data. And then they take a cue from Mint's playbook, where if you don't actually use what you pre-bought in advance, they'll give you some type of like reimbursement since you didn't use up all the data.
Yeah.
Or to keep the cost lower, you can buy data in advance that just never expires. Like if you buy 20 gigs, you have 20 gigs for the year, or however long it takes you to use the 20 gigs. Maybe they let you do something like that in advance to get a slightly cheaper rate on the per gig basis. And for those customers that are out there that don't want that, they truly do get the pay-per-use idea where it's a little bit more expensive. That would make more sense.
Sure. I hear you on that. Both good ideas. I think the other one I had is kind of along your reimbursement strategy, but instead of reimbursement, it would be more along the lines of a combination of Reach Mobile and US Mobile, where Reach Mobile has what they call their best fit policy. So if you sign up with their, I think it's like a $50 12 gig plan. Don't quote me on that, but maybe it's around there. Let's say it is. And let's say you use 3 gigs, they actually just bill you for their like $30 3 gig plan. And so I could see that where maybe MobileX, they have take US Mobile's plans. Their 1 gig $12 plan, their $15 5 gig plan, their $30 30 gig plan. And it's kind of this curve where if you use 20 gigs, you're billed $30 for the 30 gig plan. And if you use 4 gigs, you're only billed $15. So it's kind of like what you were saying, but instead of that reimbursement, it's just a post-paid system where you pay for the data tier you fall into.
Well, I think the most important thing in this, and this would make them different, is if they didn't add a time limit. Like instead of being on a per month basis, which this would be hard from a revenue generation standpoint. But
we're just like, Peter, here are ideas of how to go out of business.
but if you want to do something unique that makes you like truly gives you the opportunity to be like really cost effective, is buy data
in advance, like the
in advance, and there's no expiration on it. So even if I'm 3 years down the line,
yeah.
But TrackPhone has a little expiration on it, right? So I'm saying like you buy the data if you buy a certain amount of data, 20 gigs for whatever price, it's there until you use it. And then the only thing you charge for is like the calling and text portion of things, which you could do per minute rates if you really want to, or you could just have some like unlimited talk and texting for some cheap say $10 a month,
Sure.
right? And that could theoretically work. It's just if they go on a month by month play, there's no way they beat US Mobile as far as pricing. Like there's just not. And like US Mobile, like they overpromise stuff, but at the end of the day, they offer pretty fantastic experience. The app
It's
the
like
app and website is god tier. The customer service is pretty on point, all things considered, and the product itself is good. And if you're talking about just overall value, like if you start getting past $25, people are going to be looking at Visible. Like
right, yeah, 100%. All great points. We have a question from Patreon supporter Austin. Austin, thank you for your support. Do you think MobileX goes 100% eSIM?
No way.
No way. I agree with Dennis on this. Why do you ask? Well, because what gets customers to sign up for service? As much as I dislike it, it's actually the smartphones, right? People are churning carriers. They're signing up for plans to get the smartphone deals. So from my standpoint, I think MobileX will definitely need to offer phones, I think, to make a splash, the same way Boost Mobile offered phones, the same way Visible is offering phones, the same way other MVNOs are offering phones. So I think they need to offer phones. And the fact of the matter is Samsung phones really aren't supporting eSIM right now, and a bunch of other phones aren't supporting eSIM right now. I think to gain the traction, they need as many devices as possible to work with and integrate with their MobileX platform. That means using physical SIM cards. So eSIM will definitely be supported, but it's not going to be 100%.
Yeah, so like forget the phone selling standpoint, just focusing on the market itself. If you went 100% eSIM, you've just cut off half the market of what you can sell to.
Probably.
More than that. Like the only people that could get your service would be iPhone users and Google Pixel users. That's it.
That would be like I think Sasha was saying 30%, or like last year I think 15% of users were on iPhone 12, of iPhone users specifically. And
right.
I think this year it'll be like, but I guess the older iPhones since the XS support eSIM. So that would be.
But basically, you'd only be getting iPhone users and Google Pixel users, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
Peter uses a Samsung phone. We know he's using the Z Fold, so he's got to be able to use the plan.
And eSIM gets funny depending on where you're at and what network you're using, so it limits what networks you can use if we're talking about the borderless aspect of things. And
sure.
then also worth mentioning is that if you try to eat up eSIM, that's supposed to be the SIM that other people are using when they travel or have those alternative options, which just no way. Like they're going to have a SIM card option. Like they have to.
Yeah.
If they don't, that's cool and all, but like you just lost, like you basically reduced your potential market share by like a lot.
Yeah. Austin also has a great point that Peter's hyped this brand up from day one. Him being able to deliver on that will be crucial. Verizon has postpaid, prepaid, and Visible, all brands they own. Why would they allow that to be circumvented basically by MobileX with a possibly cheaper data amount, which is what Austin's follow-up comment was. Yeah, Dennis, like we don't know. We don't know. That's the bottom line. We're ignorant right now, but we're very
think
curious.
Verizon doesn't care either way. If the customers that MobileX are going to be getting are going to be customers that Verizon doesn't care about. Fact of the matter, like I
would disagree. I think Visible is targeting that like lower cost demographic. I think with their U.S. mobile partnership, they're targeting like a similar demographic.
You misunderstand what I mean. Like when I say they don't care about them, I'm saying like from our understanding of how we think this is going to work, these are people that are going to be very, very low data users for this to make sense, right? And if they're very, very low data users, it's also probably very, very little revenue. We talked about how small the profit margins are. Verizon's still winning because they're winning because, one, they don't have to waste time billing bill codes and all this other stuff to sell like a product like that. Leave that up to an MVNO to do, right?
Yeah.
But they're still getting paid on it, right? They're still getting paid on the per gigabyte basis. Those users aren't doing that much in this scenario. They're probably not doing this much traffic on the network. So Verizon just does not care about them. Like Verizon would rather shed a couple of those customers to get some more higher ARPU customers overall on Visible or what have you. Like even Visible makes decent money, and from an unlimited standpoint, like it's deprioritized. Visible is basically scooping up customers where Verizon had excess spectrum to begin with, right? It's deprioritized to the max. The cap on the hotspot's 5 megabits per second. Standard definition video throttle, like all these little things are in place where basically this is just like we couldn't get them on prepaid, we couldn't get them on postpaid, so let's just try to do one last little lasso to try to get a little extra revenue out of them. But if they're not going for that, then Verizon probably doesn't care, right? Like,
Sure.
what's $5 to Verizon and profit?
Right. All right. Well, I guess two more points I wanted to make from the MobileX thing. Actually, interesting tweets on Twitter. So this is, Peter on Twitter, and he says, we had a question from D. Hallison saying, but you can make a case for but can you make a case for MobileX versus getting service from Verizon directly? What about deprioritization as experienced with current Verizon MVNOs? Dennis, as you just mentioned, like, Visible's heavily deprioritized. They really only make sense in those markets where Verizon has extra capacity. Peter says, watch what we do. Network steering is a big part of our platform. What does that mean? Well, you have to wait and see. You'll have to rethink how you think about connectivity. And my biggest challenge will be to unbrainwash the brainwash done by the carriers for years. He also has some interesting takes here where he says, I was saying deprioritization, not a big deal. Peter says, yes, we covered this off in our deal, so less of an impact for MobileX US. I wonder if that means they get a certain amount of priority data per customer, maybe like the first gig is priority, and maybe they can allocate how that's used. And he says, but our platform has some cool magic in it to make it less of an issue. Stay tuned.
So I need to hold up before you go too much further.
Well, this is just saying that prioritization won't be an issue. So yes. Yeah, Dennis, we were kind of on this tweet. What are your thoughts right now? What's going through the Dennis mind?
So whenever I hear Peter talk, he says a lot of buzzwords, and it sounds great, but if you analyze it for a moment, he talks about network steering. Stetson, do you understand what network steering is or no?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, basically, I'm gonna give you the really simplified version. Network steering allows MVNOs to switch over to different MNOs based on location. So you can change the host network based off of like congestion levels and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
Well, in order for that to function, Peter would need to have an agreement with somebody else aside from Verizon for him to be able to switch over the network, right? That's the whole premise of network steering, to go off of Verizon's congested tower site at that specific location and say use AT&T where there's more available capacity. So I don't understand how that works in the U.S. I get it on an international standpoint,
right?
If he's doing that, but I don't see how that applies here in the U.S. And it still doesn't eliminate the fact that Verizon is going to give postpaid higher priority to postpaid customers. Like, unless he's paying that postpaid pricing, then I don't see what happens here. And if he is paying that postpaid pricing, then his per gigabyte cost is going to be outrageous. Like, it's going to be Xfinity Mobile level, $15 a gig type of stuff, right? Like, so
yeah.
We'll
have to see. What if he makes I think I could see him making an agreement with Dish. That's the only other person, and that would give him AT&T as well.
You think you'd want to work with Dish after all the flack they get? Didn't he give Dish flack too?
I don't think so. I think he's been advocating for Dish, right? He's been wanting to help Dish because Dish owns Boost, and he wants like Boost customers to stay connected.
Oh, you're right. It was Team. I'm sorry, my brain is a little bit on the tired side.
Yeah, I know you're tired right now, Dennis, but you're doing great. You're getting some spicy takes in here.
But look, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. Peter, I like Peter a lot. He has done some cool things, and he's a way more successful guy than I am at my age. Like,
at the moment,
he's accomplished a lot.
When Dennis Mobile launches, we're gonna have to rethink that.
And I think it's great that he's utilizing cloud-based technologies. I think there's great synergies and optimizations that can happen, and great opportunities for him to reduce costs in certain aspects of things. But I keep hearing this, and it's the same thing I had against Dish. I keep hearing these whimsical dreams, but I'm not seeing like what's on paper. Like I said, if we go back, and guys, feel free to watch the podcast from like a year ago, whenever we had him on. Listen to how it was talked. We heard lots of whimsical stuff. Nothing was really in concrete. We're hearing more stuff, a little bit more concrete, but still nothing like really on paper. Just buzzwords, which might get the ignorant investor involved. But to me, I hear these buzzwords, and I have a decent understanding of networking to know like this doesn't mean anything. Like this doesn't like and even if he does do it, like it's been done before by like Pixel, like Google Fi, right?
Google Fi, yeah.
like I just don't. I'm not following. He's all over the place, right? Like he hasn't told me what his niche demographic is, and he's not telling me how he's going to satisfy it. He's not telling me what need isn't being addressed by that niche demographic or how he's going to solve the problem. Like, what is the problem that exists? Who's the one that's having the pain points from the problem? And what are you proposing that's going to solve that problem? Those three questions haven't been answered. So to me, it makes no sense. Like, if I was an investor, I would not be buying into this. Like, I'm sorry. My eyes are brown because the world is full with BS and I see through the shit, to be honest. like I just, Peter, you're going to tear me up. I'm ready to be attacked. I deserve it for being a little bit aggressive, but like, I
think you're bringing up fair points, though. Like, the truth is we don't know. We're basing our information on past knowledge and experiences. And what history is telling us is that this kind of system didn't work. And it's likely not going to work going forward, is what I'm hearing from you, Dennis.
Well, I mean, that's another aspect. I mean, yeah, we had, granted it was outrageous, but we had pay-per-use stuff in the past, too. Like, that existed, and it went the way of the dodo because it, from a cost-value standpoint, didn't make sense, and consumers didn't want to think about it. But, like, look, Peter's telling me to wait and see. I'll wait and see. I get that he doesn't want to maybe tell too much because maybe he's worried about competitors or something like that. But, like, honestly, like, until there is a concrete, like, vision, maybe he does some type of unveiling event, presentation Apple style, where he's like, here is MobileX and here's what we're doing and here's what our pricing is, where it's targeted towards the consumer, and less buzzwords that I have to sift through, right? Like, just tell me what it is that you're solving. Then I will start believing, because like I said, right now I don't know what the pain point is, or I don't know what the problem is that he's trying to solve. I don't know who's suffering from the pain point, and I don't know what he's proposing to solve said problem, because to me there isn't a problem at the moment.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess like we could hypothesize, like, problem, consumers are paying for unlimited data plans when they don't need unlimited data. Again, average usage 12 gigs per month. The solution that Peter is offering is like a more affordable option, but the question is, like, how is that going to be, like, how is it going to be more affordable? What is the actual solution that he's building with MobileX? And what does that look like?
But here's the 3-port ready. Okay. People are paying for unlimited data, don't use it, okay?
Yeah.
Pain point is that it's a waste of money. Solution,
it's expensive, yeah.
Solution, buy a bucketed amount of data.
Go with an MVNO.
Right, which there's, what, 200 plus of them in the U.S. or something?
Yeah.
Like, and then, okay, like I said, the thing that got me most interested was the global aspect of things. So, okay, pain point. It sucks to be a global traveler whenever you're going across different countries.
True.
The people that are suffering from this are business people that have to travel internationally and people that like to go on vacations. Solution, no BS roaming fees in my plan. Okay, that makes sense. Problem, though.
Yeah.
Solution has already been resolved by companies like Airlu. US Mobile has some really attractive stuff.
Yeah.
And then the postpaid carriers have also started including international roaming. T-Mobile's been getting the Max plan.
Yep.
AT&T's been getting better at it, especially between Canada and Mexico, and even Verizon's been getting better at it. I'm not saying their pricing's fantastic. But
I would say Verizon's bad, but you're right about AT&T. They got a lot better, and T-Mobile hands down the best. And as you mentioned earlier, Google Fi, like, they're probably easily the best. You don't have to think about it; it just works.
And Airlu is really good, especially if you're an iPhone user. eSIM, download the app, bada bing, bada boom. Here you go, right?
Yeah. Austin actually coming in with a hot take. Is that a problem? I don't see a problem with paying for unlimited and not needing it. And that's a fair point. Like, some people probably like that comfort of, I can use my phone however I want. I don't need to think about my usage. If I'm on vacation and I suddenly need hotspot data, boom, I've got it ready to go. They like that postpaid experience. Maybe they like having priority data, the 4K streaming, the extra perks like HBO Max with AT&T Elite. Is there actually a problem here?
Having unlimited is honestly the most god-tier feeling in the world. Like, it really, really is. The fact that I could pop on Google Maps and not have to be like, okay, let me download this to the pre-plan method. No. Google Maps, pop on Spotify, and away I go. It feels great. Like, my typical data usage when I'm not trying to be a network tester or really push Lois's line to the max, like, it was chilling somewhere around less than 6 gigs. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But obviously, I've been pushing Lois Mobile to the max, so it's like over 100 gigs on the Lois line with the Verizon access. And T-Mobile, because of the speed testing, something like 50 because of the N41 tests and stuff like that. But, like, I don't want to think about it. Like, I don't want to be like, I'm out in public at the doctor's office. I really shouldn't be on Facebook right now. I only got 200 megabytes to spare, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to run out. It's going to get slow. We will see, Dennis. We will see. And the other thing, I guess, I'm just thinking of this now, is maybe there's like a speed variable. Like I think we saw with Boost Mobile on one of their plans, or maybe it was just Sprint, the unlimited kickstart plan. I think they actually had specific speeds for different activities, like 2 megabits per second for gaming. Yeah. So maybe that's, I don't know. We have to wait and see. And Peter, we're so curious to hear what you have to say.
But obviously, before we switch over, Peter, we're clearly interested in this. We dedicated an hour just to this one topic. So
yeah.
But with that being said, I want to take a quick moment before we make our transition to remind people that watching this episode, you should be smashing that like button because they are our sponsor today. And I know about half of you guys that have been watching aren't currently subscribed, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so that way you're seeing those uploads whenever I do surprise live streams or when Stetson does his really excellent surprise content and so forth. Now, let's go on and move on to a more refreshing topic. I want to talk about Red Pocket. I'm skipping one.
Boom.
I want to talk about Red Pocket.
No, great call. I was going to skip that as well. Red Pocket. Quickly go through this. Red Pocket, MVNO, great plans, affordable prices, offers options on Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. You choose what network you want when you sign up. Right now they're having a promo, 50% off all plans for new customers. This includes their $50 50 gig plan, which would end up being just $25 for your first month, which is awesome. And they're doing a promo for family plans. So their family plan is normally $30 for line 1 and then $20 for every line after that. And right now, 50% off, so it'd be $15 for line number 1. And Red Pocket is offering a promo where it's just $1 to add a line. So honestly, an insanely good deal right now.
Yeah, so $25 gets you 50 gigs of data. I'd say that's pretty solid. And if memory serves me, Red Pocket gets access to AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, correct?
Boom, you got it.
Now, refresh me if I'm wrong, but Red Pocket was the one that has the 75 megabits per second speed cap, right?
So yeah, they had that. I think it's actually gone away. And I know it's not on 5G, and I think they actually fixed their APN settings. Before I was downloading a Red Pocket profile, and it was capping at 75 megabits per second. When I deleted that profile, the speed cap went away. And so I think it should be going away. I'll be working on that for my review. And to clarify, this is only on the AT&T network. There's no cap whatsoever on Verizon or T-Mobile.
And then also, one other thing I want to ask. Did Red Pocket have full support for Wi-Fi calling and the other features that we care about, or was there some caveats?
Visual voicemail is a $1 add-on for some of the plans, and I think the features are a little different depending on if you're an iPhone or Android user. So I should have all that up on the Best Phone Plans website just to confirm. But all your essentials like group and picture messaging are going to work. 5G works on AT&T and T-Mobile, and honestly, it's just a really good deal. And as Austin's pointing out, his favorite thing is their international calling. They include actually free international calling to over 80 countries, which for anyone who's visiting the United States and his family at home, honestly a really great option to kind of stay in touch with family and friends.
Gotcha.
So, we want to bring this up. I mean, honestly, even if you don't stick with Red Pocket, I think it's a pretty cool opportunity to test out how is the AT&T network in my area? I'm a Mint Mobile customer, never been on AT&T, let me test it out. Or how's the Verizon network in my area? That kind of thing. So
yeah, I would say out of all the plans, the one that would probably be most attractive is that 10 gig plan for 15.
Yep, 10 gigs for 15. That's what I'm on right now for my review. I've been on it for a year. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. But the review is in the works.
I mean, it's $30 afterwards, but even at $30, it's not bad.
They're really good. I mean, this is kind of your point. It's a great data bucket carrier where you're getting some really great low-cost options. And they also have annual plans, kind of like Mint Mobile, if you wanted to get even more data. So, Dennis, that $30 10 gig plan actually doubles to 20 gigabytes if you're willing to pay for a year up front.
Yeah, that's so good, dude. And I don't know how you beat that. I just don't. I really don't. And with 20 gigs, that's basically unlimited for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
That's really good. Especially considering AT&T access.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, awesome opportunity to try them out. I mean, I'll leave them linked to the Best Phone Plans website if you want to just like learn more, see if like they're an option for you. You could get a new number, test them out for a month, which is what I would do. Or yeah, I mean, we're just trying to give you some more information. It's a pretty good deal, and I think that's it. I think Dennis, we round this out with the auction that's going on right now. No.
Oh, yes. We could talk about the auction, but no, there was a topic I texted you about that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you remember the video I sent you from CNBC?
Oh, absolutely.
I wanted to talk about that too.
You want to sneak that in now, or you want to do it after the auction?
Let's do the auction, and we'll sneak that in because it has to go with about the rant and rave I had from last week. So.
Okay. Well, I'll quickly go through the auction then. I mean, this is this is from Light Reading, and they're calling this auction the Andromeda auction, I believe is how you would say that. Basically, the FCC is auctioning off 100 megahertz of spectrum between 3.45 gigahertz and 3.55 gigahertz. And anyone who participates in this auction can walk away with a maximum of 40 megahertz of continuous spectrum, which could be super, super helpful. And basically, what we have here is the first round of results are in, and the bids totaled $609 million. Such a high number likely indicates that we've got Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, the big dogs, and Dish participating and bidding at this auction. And Light Reading is hypothesizing right now that AT&T is likely the most aggressive bidder, but we don't really know. We have to wait and see. And I think the final point is that there's a $14.8 billion reserve price, I should say, for the auction, which basically means the total bids need to exceed $14.8 billion in order for the spectrum to actually be, properly distributed to the bidders.
Refresh my memory just a little bit. With the first auction, when things were done, Verizon was able to get 100 megahertz?
Yeah, they got a lot, and I think they bid aggressively for that first wave of spectrum. So the last one was the C-band spectrum, that was the C-band auction, and they basically are doing it in waves. So I think the first wave is coming up this kind of fall, early 2022, and then from I think late 2022 is when the rest of the spectrum is going to become available. And that was a lot. I think you could get, as you mentioned, 100 megahertz of continuous.
Yeah, I think they had 200 megahertz total up the grabs, and I think Verizon got 100, and then I think
AT&T. I think it was almost more than that. I think it was 250 megahertz.
Well, if I remember correctly, I think Verizon got 100 megahertz, and I think AT&T already got 60.
Yeah. It was 280 megahertz of total spectrum.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Verizon crushed it. So honestly, I'm going to be honest. I know Verizon wants this because the more the merrier, but do you even think Verizon really needs it?
I don't think Verizon needs it. I think they want it, and if they can get it, it'll be good. But I think they spent so much on the previous auction for C-band that they probably don't want to spend too much on this one. So
I think the only saving grace here is that no one can walk away with more than 40 megahertz. So
yeah. So I guess once let's say T-Mobile locks in 40 megahertz, they're basically out of the auction. There's no point in them to continue bidding.
Dude, there's no way T-Mobile wants 40 megahertz. They got all that in 41.
They're fine. They have the most spectrum of anyone right now.
This is the outcome that I see happening. You ready?
Yeah.
Verizon buys 40 more megahertz because they learned a lesson from the LTE era, which was having spectrum important. AT&T gets 40 megahertz because they weren't as aggressive in the previous one, and they're learning the lesson of having spectrum is important. And then I think T-Mobile might get a sliver, 10 by 10, some bargain of the barrel stuff, just because that's how T-Mobile will be playing. They begin these stupid small frequency contingencies, and then Dish takes whatever the scraps are.
I think I would swap Dish and T-Mobile. I think T-Mobile's there to just bid up prices, and if they win something cool, I think Dish is probably going to try and walk away with 10 to 20 megahertz. Of course, I don't really know. Spectrum auctions aren't my forte, so this is kind of just fun.
I just want to say something really important, though.
Yeah.
If you're getting 10 to 20 megahertz, let's be realistic here. For 5G, that's pretty useless.
You think so? I don't know. I think that's fine. If you can carrier aggregate it with other bands, I think it'll be.
If you could carrier aggregate with other bands, yeah, it's great. But let's think about how carrier aggregation works. Not all bands play nicely with each other, right?
Sure.
So I don't know what carrier ag is going to look like, but I know for a fact that it's going to be a pain in the butt to do carrier aggregation on.
Okay. So we'll have to wait and see. It's another wait and see. Dennis, let's go into the final topic that you picked out for this week. This is a CNBC video, why internet access is slow and costly in the U.S. 2 things you do not want your internet access to be. What is going on right now?
Well, first, let me just ask, did you watch the video?
100% did not watch the video, going to be honest with you.
All right.
That's why I'm here to ask questions.
All right. Well, if that is the case, then that's not going to make it as fun as to talk about. But basically, it goes into the whole trope about how I talk about like why monopolies exist in the U.S. and CNBC had their own thoughts on why certain things end up being the way they are. They kind of touched on the whole, apartment complex thing. Remember how we had the
that's what you were talking about last time, where it's like, they make this deal and it's kind of shady.
They touched on a lot of different things and they were talking about some different topics. And I was going to get into the whole thought of like, do you think 5G wireless is going to fix it? But honestly, if you haven't watched it, then I say we table this. We hold it for another day because I think it's not going to be fun if it becomes a Dennis show. And I want you to actually engage because I think they do. It'd be nice to hear your
my take
less
is a
nerdy
non-wireless. Yeah, sure.
So
Sweet.
We'll table that. In the meantime, though, I want to thank everyone that watched the streaming of this podcast live. You guys are epic and are the reason why we're able to make the high-quality content that we do. It's the reason why Stetson can afford all the different plans that he's testing, including many, many projects that he's working on. So thank you guys for being supporters. To the people that are watching on YouTube here on Friday, I want to remind you again, please just leave a like. It does more than you know to help out the channel. And please make sure you're subscribing because I do surprise live streams sometimes where I do network testing. And I do have
It absolutely
plans.
does. It's been surprising to me even. I love it.
And I do have plans to possibly make some other content on the channel for you guys, just as like fun stuff. So make sure you subscribe so you're seeing that whenever it gets uploaded. And make sure you share this with a friend. I think that you might want to direct them specifically in regards to the Red Pocket offer. You might be able to save your friend a couple extra bucks. And
hopefully a amount of money, for sure.
And if you're a Red Pocket customer, I believe they have a referral link, don't they?
Oh, yeah. You can just check it out at the link in the video description. And also, someone share it with Peter. We got to see what his reaction is.
I feel like I'm going to get torn up, but Peter, if you're watching this, you are welcome to come on and educate this poor soul known as Dennis.
And with that said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Dennis.
And we look forward to talking to you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.